Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review God's Favorite Idiot. So, this, of course, is the last two episodes, 7 and 8, of Season 1. Really, I just wanted to just kind of finish this show for the first season because normally I don't go on, usually finish a lot of seasons. Often I just go on and just do the pilot episode and then just kind of go on and be like, well, like, that was a nice attempt, because knowing good and well that eventually the first episode of a certain season won't be as good as other episodes. So here's to hopefully how well this might go. So, or eventually if people see it. So, God's Favorite Idiot, the last two episodes, I gotta say that there's a lot of just rinse and repeat kind of going on within these last two episodes. There's really, like, there was never really any effort put into this show, and it just consistently becomes apparent within every episode. That's kind of my real hesitation of kind of forgetting this even existed. Like, oh yeah, I guess I should watch the last two episodes. So, within these last two episodes, we go on and we have the four horse people of Apocalypse that show up to really do nothing. Um, we have Satan that has to remind people that she's even on the show. We have God that comes back that, again, does diddly. And we just have the same words just being uttered repetitiously throughout the show. It's a good thing that I didn't repetitiously spam this whole entire season to try and watch it in one fell swoop, or I would have really forgotten a number of things that would have happened. In, like, if I would have gone on and reviewed this as an entire season, there is no way that I could have remembered anything from most of these episodes because they're all the repetitively same. Or really, I would have just gone on and said, like, man, this show is awful, and quickly wrote it off as that. Um, so, within these last two episodes, we seem to have it where it seems more and more that Satan and hell are winning whatever battle that's happening, that we only saw two people really fighting. Uh, and God isn't one of them that's fighting this battle. So we are to just have written off certain characters like Shamel because he's written off the show for the last two episodes, to where we should have honestly needed him the most in the last two episodes, and we don't have him at all. We kind of have to have Frisbee, who's kind of to be the designated hitter as far as what's left for Angels on the show, I guess. So, within these two episodes, we also, like, we put no effort into Mosin and Wendy's, like, build up of how they were going on and having this will they won't they kind of thing going on, and they just rush to the, like, well, hey, like, something's gonna happen here, and so let's just kind of rush to get this over with. So eventually, again, no effort is put into, again, another thing. So within these two episodes, really, we also have the ending of this show being this overly done kind of ending to a show. And I was to go on and groan about that because I'm like, wow, this is the most uncreative show with the most uncreative ending, and it just was to just be like, man, why did I devote so much time and effort to even watching the show? Could have gone on and watched other things, but it also seemed that, especially right out of the gate, people liked this show, and so I was like, okay, let's see what this is. And eventually, I knew I was going to somehow get disappointed in it. but I was just like, well, let's just give it the old college try and finish up a show, because it seemed that it could be interesting at some point to people. So, with that said, let's go on and let's just go into spoilers, because really, within these two episodes, there's nothing really eventful happening towards a season finale of a show. They just rinse and repeat, they recycle, because they just need to just keep using the same things over and over again. How? Why? There's so many, like, more interesting kind of things that they could have gone. There could have been a million different directions that they could have gone on and done way better with the show. And they decided to just shove a turd out there and try to sell it on some app system somewhere to make money, because people had nothing better to do. Evidently. So, with that said, let's go into that double five time territory. Let's just go into what, of course, is to always be dubbed spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about the W to spoil the show. So, within the last two episodes, we are to go on and have Mosin give Wendy flowers and to tell her that Mosin is to say to Wendy that he thinks that she's nice too, and whatever that means, that that eventually he's to give her flowers because of that. And so Wendy's like, oh wow, there's something there. So we go on in the last episode and rush the whole relationship thing, where Mosin and Wendy just kiss and say that they're in a relationship, I guess. But this is all while they're wheelchairing Jean out of the hospital, because I'll go on and explain that within this episode. So, we are in this episode, and we have, of course, where Emily and Clark are talking to Jean in the hospital, and so Jean, I guess, is feeling much better, and so he wants to go on and have some home cooked meal being brought to him to the hospital. And so Jean is rattling off all these foods, but he's saying, "But man, that roasted chicken would really be the clincher for me to get out of here." And Clark is like, well, yeah, like roasted chicken, yeah, that would definitely be the clincher. And so they keep going on and saying that the roasted chicken is definitely a clincher, because they just keep having to say that, to where eventually Emily is to mention about like the roasted chicken, like definitely clincher, right? And then eventually they say that in the other episode, where the guy's eating the chicken and just saying it's a clincher because it's clinching. Man, do they have to just keep on clinching, because that's what I clinched. Anyways, fa. So, uh, so we have Clark and we have Emily as they were also to do this LARPing video again, where it seems that Tom is to go on and be a problem with the rest of the LARPers, and that they're wanting to go on and kick him out of this whole LARPing thing. And Emily comes to the rescue and is to tell everybody, it's like, well, hey, like, if Tom is to be kicked out of this place, like, he really has no really anywhere to go. So maybe you guys should not go on and kick him out of here. And so the ogre is to kind of just be like a naysayer about that. So then Emily has to go on and fight this ogre with maybe a stunt double, or maybe she's really doing some of this. And so we have Emily going on and taking down this ogre and wins this fight. And so we have Tom, who is to still stay in uh, this role playing game. And so Tom is throwing shade to this bucktooth guy. And so we have the guy who's reminding Tom, it's like, well, hey, like, this is role play. Remember, this is role play. So we go on and have the guys who are watching this whole LARPing video, and they're like, "Oh wow, that's great." As we have a number of horse people that are on the beaches making their way to get to where Clark is. So we have Clark and we have Emily that are making their way to this grocery store, picking up all this food, and so we have Emily that's grabbing all of these items that have nothing to do with what Clark is actually cooking, like getting a bunch of vegetables or a bunch of fruit, because it's all where they're at technically in this store. So Clark is telling Emily, it's like, well, hey, like, shouldn't we go off to the chicken section? Because that'll be the real food that we're going to actually have to get. So they're going through and looking at chicken, and eventually Emily is slapping Clark with chicken. So the four horse people end up showing up in the store, and like Clark and Emily are running off, and so the four horsemen are to make their presence known and rattle off who is who of any of the four horsemen. It won't matter because they won't do anything past this moment, so it really doesn't give a who is who really. So because we have like pestilence and like death doing most of the talking, and then famine and war kind of chime in every once in a while. But again, pestilence and death are doing most of the heavy lifting in the four horse people talking. So we have it to where these four horse people are to go on and tell Clark, it's like, well, hey, we're gonna come after you. And so Clark and Emily just kind of run out of this grocery store in order to throw a thing of money at this cashier, saying like, "Hey, keep the change," and they didn't ring anything up. So now we go on, and we eventually have Clark, I guess, making this food. So we have Mosin and we have Tom who are at work. And so Tom again is to interrupt another person in the bathroom stall who isn't, of course, uh, Clark this time around. So we have Tom mentioning to Mosin, as Tom had gone on and given all these guys sweaters that all have the Council of Clark initials on them. And Wendy is to have been upset because it's like everyone's just going to look at their shirts and just say what, of course, these initials mean. And Tom is like, nobody's going to go on and just say those initials. And immediately we have Frisbee that walks into the room and is to immediately just keep spotting out that word, and then just goes on and is to just like, God. So, or like, man, like, we just have Frisbee who just keeps saying that and then he leaves. So we have Tom that is going to Mosin in the turlet, and come to find out, Tom never goes on into the turlet in his floor because he likes to go to another floor of people that he doesn't work with, because he likes his privacy. And so he never actually goes to the turlet when he goes to the turlet. So, but Tom is talking to Mosin and asking him about his religion, and that if he is to go on and actually go and pray and do religious stuff, and Mosin is going to be like, well, no, like I haven't done that in a long time. So Tom is just like, oh, okay then, like, all right. So, so that was the whole thing about that. What a giant waste of time that was. Waste. Crap. Poo. Moving on. So, when Clark is eventually to finally make it to work, whenever he has the time to not be giving his father chicken or, uh, I'm sorry, there's probably rain or hail or something that you're hearing in the background. I apologize. Weather is happening. And plus, also, it may not matter with this kind of review, so it's okay. So, we go on into this episode, and so we have eventually Clark meeting up with God in one of these episodes, and God just kind of tells him the exact same that she told him before about like, well, hey, like at least you tried to get the word out there, but I don't think you really tried hard enough, and so I need you to go on and try to get my word out there, and so. And really, she doesn't tell him anything different than what she said before. And within the last episode, we just have Judy who goes on and is to try to get the word out there that no matter what um, anyone really believes, that she believes that the Four Horsemen are here, and the world's ending, and all of this stuff. And so we have within this episode, within this other episode. So Clark and Emily go on and are to give Jean this food, and we of course have them again saying about the clincher, and so we have Frisbee that is going on and telling Clark that it seems that the Harry Potter that they had done on this hospital will only last until dawn tomorrow, and so we have Clark who's also getting this FaceTime from some unknown caller, and Clark accepts it and comes to find out that it's the devil saying like, "Hey guys, like remember me? I'm still on this show, and I went on and I've killed Shamel, and I've killed God, and I've killed heaven and everybody." And so so Satan is saying that she's coming for Clark and is going to come to kill him. So Uh, so we have that going on, and so we have Clark, who is to really just think at this time that they just need to run away. That's probably the best thing for them to go on and do at this point is just kind of run away from their problems and try to run away from Satan. So, and to hopefully also try to get the word out for God. Um, because Clark doesn't seem like he's doing the best effort on that whole front. So we have now where uh, we have Jean who needs to be rescued from this hospital, and they need to eventually also get Clark and Emily away from Satan within the last episode. And so really for the last episode we go on and we have Satan who's running around this hospital and everybody's evading Satan. And so we have Jean and Mosin and Wendy and they confess their love to one another. Not Jean. Jean's kind of out of that whole thing, but he's also just like, hey guys, we gotta get out of here. So Mosin, Jean, and Wendy bump into Satan, and somehow Wendy is to convince Satan that she needs to go on and kind of take control of hell and not have any bosses or anybody that she has to go on and take orders from. And Satan's like, yeah, you're right. And so Satan goes back to hell to control hell. And the guys are looking at Wendy like, wait a minute, you just told her what to do. You just mind controlled her. And Wendy's like, yeah, I guess I did. So I guess we're starting to see that, like, when Mosin was to talk to Tom about him being Tom the Baptist, and Mosin is going on and just saying, like, well, hey, like, maybe more than likely, like, you're not some like prophet for uh like God or whatever. Maybe like you were just the right person at the right time to have been chosen for some moment to do some good deed. To where we might go on and we might just have just people going on and doing that. Like, we have Clark who bumps into the Reverend and is to tell the Reverend that, like, well, hey, like, Clark starts mentioning things about the Reverend's past and is to go on and start to speak Latin. And the Reverend is like, am I seriously translating everything that you're saying in Latin? And Clark is like, well, yeah, I guess so, because I guess I know Latin now. So, saying that I guess every Reverend knows Latin, because I guess you would have to go on and read every bizarrish thing of paper in Latin, or that usually seems to be like the recommendation for everybody to go on and learn Latin, even though it's technically a dead language when you're a Reverend for some goofy reason. Because watch any Conjuring movie or any movie that involves like old Bible stuff, it's always like, yeah, thank God I learned Latin at my retreat or something like that. So we have, I guess, Clark maybe making amends with this Reverend and trying to skedaddle from out of this hospital. And so all of a sudden, the four horse people arrive and are coming after Clark and Emily, or Amity. It doesn't really matter. So all of a sudden, Tom is springing into action with his sword and nothing else on but underwear. And so Tom is telling Clark and Emily that he has gone on and distract these horsemen, these horse people, so they need to get out of here. So both of them go into this car to drive off, and so now both of them are on this road trip to escape from everything, and hopefully all of this pans out in a very cliche-ish way to end a season on a freaking road trip that just doesn't make sense. But not only that, we go on and we have like Satan who's making accusations that we don't even know is really true. Um, as well as just kind of going on and just kind of finishing off this season very weakly, very weak. Um, and to not really think that there's going to possibly be a glimpse of a season two here, because that would have really been like a real one in a million shot that was going to happen. Other than that, I feel like everything is kind of quickly covered within this show that I kind of said for the most point. Because I feel like there was really nothing going on within these last two episodes, so hopefully I covered something. If there's something that I forgot about, let me know in the comments below. Because really, when looking at it, this was kind of like, meh. Like, the effort of my review was probably as equal to the effort of the show. Nothing. So that's it for me to have gone on and said anything about the show. Really was putting a real effort in. So sadly enough, like there was a glimpse of this show being good, but it ended up just getting snuffed out by just having this be overall just an effortless show. So that said, I hopefully have covered everything in a very vague like notion, but either way, I just want to say I want to get out of here so I can go on and sleep. So I'm gonna get out of here. Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody.